Hi everyone, welcome to Virtual SenchaCon 2023. Hoping everyone is doing good. In this presentation, I'll be covering the topic Customized Test Automation of Ext JS applications, what, why, and how. Myself, Yogeswaran Balakumaravel, Senior Automation Engineer, part of Celestial System Managed Quality Services team. My major role is creation of test automation strategies and implementing same. In software development, automation plays a major role and it accelerates the process of delivering the product. In web automation, UI components are the main thing. Using these UI components, automation replicates the user actions on the screen. And during the course of application development, these UI components may change. Today, I'll be sharing my learnings from the past projects, how to cope up or embrace the change and maintain the automation code intact. Below are the topics I'll be discussing in today's presentation. Automation overview. What is automation? How and why? I have picked few tools and we will look at the categorization of those tools and we will look into generic automation workflow and we'll look at what are the do's and don'ts to follow while locating an element or elements in the Ext JS application. I have a little demo prepared for this session and I'm using Selenium as an automation tool. I'll be giving overview of Selenium, and for demo I have an Ext JS application and I have few workflows automated. We will look into that as well, and finally we will wrap this session with Q&A. To summarize what is automation, here is the definition I found in Wikipedia. It says, in software testing, the test automation is the use of software separate from the software being tested to control the execution of tests and the comparison of actual outcomes with the predicted ones. Basically, it's tool against another tool with set of known outcomes, and these expectations or outcome set by us is compared during the execution of automation scripts. This comparison decides the outcome of our tests, nothing but whether the tests are pass or fail and whether it's a go or no go. Let's have a look at automation testing lifecycle. Testing lifecycle involves various stages and it starts with decision to automate. Here, we will validate our application whether it's a right fit for automation, and we consider various factors like lifetime of our application, how vast is our application, test case quantity, and the frequency of our regression cycle. Once we decide to automate, we move on to the next stage, feasibility study. Here, we consider multiple automation tools and validate against our application under test. We'll verify how far it is capable of capturing the UI element and play around with it. Once we done the study, we move on to the tool selection. So now we have multiple tools and we did a decent study. Now we will consider the cost involved. If it is a paid tool, what is the procuring cost and what is the scalability of each tool, what the support we get from the community, and what are the languages support, what are the platform it supports like Mac, Windows, or what are the OS it supports. Say if you are considering mobile, iOS or Android. Once we decide the tool, we will go ahead with the scope of automation testing. Here we will define the scope, like what are the test case we need to automate, what is the entry and exit criteria, and what are the functionalities we need to focus on. We will talk in detail in upcoming slides, and we move on with the plan, design and development stage. Here, say we already have a framework, automation framework. We'll check whether we can reuse the same framework for our application. If we don't have any, then we will be building it from the scratch. Then language, design pattern, we need to consider all these, and we need to check which environment we're gonna develop our automation suite, and what are the other libraries we need, and how we gonna fit in to the pipeline if there is any. And parallelly, we'll be doing the test execution and maintenance. Say our framework is set and we have a couple of test cases. So we start to execute it. We will check the stability and how accurate the results are. Say if we are deviating, then we'll change the approach and make it work for us. So that's what we'll do in the test execution and maintenance, and it's an ongoing process. Let's look at objective and benefits of automation. First and foremost, it provides fast feedback. Say we have an automation suite and it's part of a CI/CD pipeline. Now we are pushing a change. We get immediate feedback about our application build quality. Thus, it reduces the release time as well. Say we don't have any pipeline, we can execute it manually also, and comparing to the human effort, automation runs fast and you get the feedback about the build immediately. And when I talk about reduction in cost, on a long run, it totally removes manual effort. Thus, it saves huge sum of money. And the quality of the deliverable also high when the manual intervention is very less. So the manual error is negligible, or the human error is negligible. And the important thing when we are considering the automation is to do a proper automation ROI. The initial cost of automation is very high, say during the setup, building the framework, building the first set of test scripts. Yeah, the cost is very high, but on the long run, the costs are negligible. When to start automation? Below are the minimal criteria to be considered. Say we are having a regression suite, and make sure that it is consistently passing with 100% results. Make sure that all the test cases are clearly defined with precondition, has proper test data to test, and it has the expected result or expected outcome. These test cases should be reviewed and approved for the automation particularly. Make sure that at least couple of rounds of testing is done on our application with 70% pass results. That will define the application stability. Let's move on to the testing pyramid. We can segregate the testing into two, white box and black box. White box is mostly done by the developers and they do it using unit test cases, where the black box involves integration testing using API and end-to-end testing using the UI. Sometimes it might be combination of both. Our automation comes in the top of the pyramid. So our UI test always covers the end-to-end test cases. Sometimes we cover the API test cases as well, but for this presentation, we'll be more concentrating on the UI part. Once we start automate, we need to consider which test cases needs to be automated first. Below are the few test cases which will be a right candidate for automation. Firstly, the regression test cases. These test cases are used to validate the build quality. Some company has its own build verification test which consists of these regression test cases. These test cases are right candidate for automation. Then we have data-driven test cases. These test cases has multiple data sets with the same execution flow. Basically, this will have repetitive steps. We can automate these test cases, which reduces the manual effort. And we can consider the test cases which pass the manual validation. And we can consider the test cases which has more data verification points. Like checkpoints, it may have 5 or 6 validation points or more than that. We can consider these test cases as well. And all end-to-end test cases can be considered for the automation. Let's see how web application automation is achieved. Web application can be automated either by code injection or by replicating the user action using the UI components present in the web application. Code injection is a tedious task. Why? Because we need a separate code which will be injected into the browser or into the application. And most of the times it may crash the application or the browser, and the worst part is it won't effectively replicate the user action. Because of this, the later one became an industry standard. Automating the UI component, first we should be able to locate the UI component using the automation tool perfectly. Once we are able to locate the element using the automation tool, we should be able to command over the element. So this is how the web automation is achieved. And as I said earlier in the feasibility study, not all the automation tools and applications go well with each other. Some may work, some may not work. So in that case, we need to look for a better automation tool. When we are talking about the automation tool, below are the points which needs to be considered when selecting a tool. First thing is compatibility. Say our application runs across multiple platforms or multiple OS. Say it works on both mobile, tab and desktop. So our automation tool should be able to work on all these three platforms or the examples. If we are picking automation tool for each platform, that's not a cost effective one. And scalability. Our automation tool should be scalable for the new changes. Say, when I say changes, it's not about the application. Let's say we are planning for a new pipeline. You should be able to fit in the pipeline. And the third point, maintenance. There should not be much changes or much upgradation should be there to the automation tool. Else, we need to stick to the particular version which won't be viable for a long run. And we need to consider the support and the reporting factor of the automation tool. Some automation tool has huge supporting community, where some very popular automation tool doesn't have that much support community or results on the Google. We need to consider about the cost. Some tool cost per license, some tool cost per the usage. And adaptability. There are few tools which are very niche and it cannot be picked up easily, and the learning curve will be very high and getting resources will be very rare. So we need to consider all these things while selecting a tool. These are the few automation tools which I have handpicked and can be categorized under different factors. Few tools are based upon development methodology like behavior driven development. These can be used when we are adapting the BDD approach. For example, we can use Cucumber, JBehave, Fitnessy. And there are few tools which are open source and can be cost effective. And these tools can be tailored according to our automation development need, like Selenium, APM, Jasmine. And there are few more tools which support different languages like Java, Python, C Sharp, JavaScript, and the code can be written in any language and it can be matched with our development code as well. I mean the language which we use for development. For example, we can count upon again on Cucumber, Selenium, APM, and there are few proprietary tools, which means we need to pay for the license to use those tools, like QF Test, RunnerX, Test Complete, and these licenses may depends on individual license or as a whole, and few are targeted for particular JavaScript framework. I mean the UI components like Angular, Protractor, Jest. Few works on different platforms as well, like Selenium, which can be used on both iOS, Windows, and even on Linux. And even we can use RunnerX on multiple platforms. And there are few tools which are targeted to a particular platform or particular application like APM, Robotium. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's have a look how the test cases are scripted. First, we will identify the elements which are part of the test case, and we will locate those elements using any one of the location strategy supported by the tool. Some tools basically use class, ID, attributes. Some tools we can write XPaths as well. Some tools it identifies the UI component as an image or picture, and these components can be saved in a different flat file, or it can be a part of the particular class or the script which we're gonna write. Use these locators as part of the functions. That means we can write a function around this locator, or we can write a generic function and we can pass these locators as parameters to it and add the next step is adding a necessary weight, and this weight can depend upon the element or specific to the element, or the weight can be applied overall the script and integrate the script with the test suite or to the framework. Few basic rules to follow when creating a function or a method. Make sure that the function is reusable and it is independent. And when we are creating a locator, make sure there is a single copy and most of the functions refers to that particular locator. When there is a change in the element, so we need to make changes in only one place, or else the changes needs to be done wherever the locator copy is there. Let's move on to the next slide. How to identify the elements in Ext JS application. Below are the few pointers which can be helpful to successfully identify each element in the Ext JS application, and it will make sure the locators are highly efficient in locating the elements until there is a drastic change in the element array or in the DOM structure. Firstly, let's see having a defined attribute for automation, how it will be helpful. We can request for a defined automation attribute with a static value, and this can be achieved by using id or item id in the Ext.js configuration file, and these static values can be concatenated with any other value, but still it will be identifiable using the locator strategy. Next, we can use the element text as an anchor. So whenever there is a static element text in the application, we can use it because most of the text will be static unless until if it is a web table or date or time. So we can use this unique element as an anchor, and we can either move forward or move downward in the DOM structure and identify other elements or its child nodes. By using XPath. XPath comes with various functions and access. By using the access, we can navigate either forward or backward in the DOM structure, and there are multiple functions available in the XPath which can be used or utilized as well. Or we can group multiple attribute values together and we can identify the elements in the UI. Before moving on to the don'ts section, apart from XPath, we can use the coordinates of the elements, but when there is a change in resolution, the coordinates may won't work. So at the time, the automation execution will fail or the automation scripts will fail over there. We can use the images as well. We can capture each and every element as an image, and by locating that image we can pursue the automation. But there are tools which are very sensitive to the image size and the color. Even a small fraction of change in the color or the image size, it will be very hard to work on those elements. Let's move on to the don't section. Here the main common mistake is using XPath and CSS generators. There are multiple tools available in the market. This tool captures the current attribute value and it creates the XPath or CSS. So once the DOM structure or the attribute value gets updated, these locators won't work later time. Same goes for manually created locators with dynamic values. So once the DOM structure or the attribute values updated or refreshed, these XPaths won't work. So we need to update the XPaths or the CSS value each and every time. That's not proper automation. And the last, avoid using single attributes while creating locators. So when we are using single attributes, there is, even though it's static, there is a high chance it may change later. What we can do is identifying more than one attribute value and clubbing those can give some solid XPath or CSS locators. For this discussion purpose, I have picked up Selenium automation tool. Let's have a quick overview of the tool. It supports multiple programming language like Java, Python, C#, JavaScript, and it is open source. So we can take the code and tailor it according to our need. It supports multiple platforms like iOS, Windows, and Linux, and it supports multiple browsers as well. And by using remote WebDriver, we can execute it in the mobile as well. When we couple it with different programming language like say Java, we can create multiple frameworks, and again we can tailor it, and we can scale it with different libraries like Maven, TestNG, and we can attach it to a pipeline. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's see how test automation is achieved in Selenium. As I said earlier, Selenium support different languages, nothing but different libraries like Java, Python. So when we execute the code is converted into JSON via protocol and send it to the particular browser driver where we're gonna launch our application under test. These browser drivers convert this JSON via protocol JSON commands and send it to the browser. Once the browser executes the command, it sends the response back to the driver, and this happens over the HTTP. And once the driver gets the response, it again converts the response into JSON protocol and send it to JSON library, Selenium library. So this is how the test automation is achieved. Let's move on to the next slide. So I have a little demo prepared for this presentation purpose. Let me switch to the application. This is the application called Hire My Team, developed by Celestial Systems for hiring purpose. Let me walk you through the application. So this is the landing page. The left side has the menu items, where the right side displays the contents of the menu item. For this demo purpose, what we will do, we'll navigate to jobs and we'll create new job postings. To do so, let's click on this plus symbol. So these are the mandatory fields which we need to fill. Let's split this into two scenarios. One is the positive and the other one is the negative. For the negative scenario, I'll be leaving few mandatory fields empty and I'll be clicking on save. And for the positive flow, we're just gonna enter all the mandatory fields and click on save. First, let's have a look at the negative flow. Let me fill in some basic details over here. Work location anywhere in India, job title senior software engineer, ID 12345, positions 3, due date let us take like end of this month. So when I click on save, the mandatory fields will pop up with red color and we'll get this ribbon saying please fill mandatory fields. And this is one scenario, and the next scenario is we will fill in all the details. Need to have core Java, nice to have agile, manager is celestial, visible to mobile, and we will be clicking on save. So this is what I'm gonna show in demo. So I have already scripted these two flows, and I have created a minimalist Java framework using Selenium. It has other components like Maven, TestNG, and I have created or built this upon page factory of Selenium and factory built a design pattern. So these are the 3 pages which we are going to navigate through. Let me first run the negative flow. It takes a couple of minutes to load. So once we log in, we validating whether we are on the right page. After that, we are navigating to the jobs. Let's wait. So there are a few Ajax components. So our automation code wait for that Ajax components to disappear. Okay. So this is the negative flow. So up to here we are validating whether this orange ribbon is visible or not. Purposefully I didn't log out, or I scripted the logout action. So this is the positive flow. Let me run this guy. Again, we are waiting for the Ajax components to disappear. Fill in all the details and click on save. Yeah. So this is the demo. Let me walk you through few of the components. Let's take a look at these menu items. So if you see, the DOM elements are the attribute values are dynamically created. So if I refresh this application couple of times, it will be the same. But when this application get refreshed in the web server, these ID values and all the attribute values will get refreshed and updated. So now it says ID is value is 2. Sometimes later, like say once the server got refreshed, it may say 3 or even 1 or 0. Here the development team, for automation purpose, they have given a static attribute with static value attribute with static value. Yeah, this is the attribute. If you see rm-id left tree panel, so this attribute helps me a lot to automate this application. Let me walk you through the landing page. So if you see a couple of places, I have used this attribute to identify that particular component or element in the application. And when writing XPath, so we can consider these static text elements as well. So it will be of great help while writing the XPaths or the locators. And apart from that, we can use these text elements as an anchor as well, and we can find the child node or the parent node, either traveling front and forward in the DOM structure. And few of the don'ts while writing XPath is using the XPath generator or CSS generator. So what happens is, like, so when you are saying you are writing, this is the way to create a XPath. If you see, it will give you a very generic XPath, and if there is any change in this ID, say the web server is getting refreshed, the whole application is getting refreshed, so this numeric value may change to any other value. So better to avoid the XPath generators. Let's go back to the slide deck. Once again, let's see what are the advantages of automation. So as I showcased, Ext JS application can be automated. It's not like we cannot automate. It can be automated following a few do's and don'ts. And say we are having a huge enterprise application which is built on Ext JS. There are so many advantages we get out of it using automation, like getting a fast feedback. Say, as I said earlier, our automation is plugged in a pipeline, so once the code is pushed, we will immediately get the feedback, like how the quality of build is. Apart from that, cost of testing, say we are running a number of regression cycles per year for our application. So once we create this automation suite, so it reduces the manual labor over there. In that wise, it will reduce the cost of testing, and the release time also will be decreased for each and every release. And quality of the deliverable, so during the automation there is no space for manual error. And say we are having a application which is having multiple modules and high critical modules, by using automation the quality will be same each and every time when our tests are getting executed. As I said earlier, Ext JS applications are highly automatable if we are using proper location strategies with proper tool. Please feel free to reach us in case of any queries on how to write locators or how effectively to write locators, what to follow, what not to follow while creating them. And that's my time. Let's open up for Q&A. Thank you, everyone.
So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the question panel there on the right, and we'll do our best to get them answered for you. So what, in your opinion, is the most challenging part of test automation?
Uh, the most challenging part is like putting together a effective team with proper communication, etc., and selecting a right tool, proper tool for automation, which goes well on with the application under test. Uh, Apart from that, we should have skilled resources, and the main thing is having a proper testing approach.
Do
Yeah.
I need a Ext JS license for my test automation project? So you need a developer license for your development, but then on your automation, do you need a separate license for that?
Yeah, for test automation, actually, we no need. Say, you are using you're gonna create a unit test, then you need a developer license. But for UI automation, we no need.
Okay. And what types of professional services do you offer? I guess you directly, offer professional services.
Yes, so we have a huge team of automation testers. So uh,
I got
we
it.
are, yeah, and most of them are working with Sencha for a long time. So we provide good services regarding like strategies, how to automate the Ext JS applications, and we have automated uh, many projects end to end, yeah, and which gave good ROI and good results upfront.
One of the things, I'm a big fan of automation, by the way, and
Okay,
for me,
good to hear.
the big thing about automation is knowing that it's going to be the same every time, and not, when the next release comes out, being like, "Hey, did someone test the other thing?" It's like I just want to know it's all automated and know when I push this button that if that light's green, it's all good.
Correct. Yes, exactly. The two say we are having a CI/CD pipeline, and everything is well organized and set up in a correct way. So we no need to worry. So just push the code and wait for the results. So
Exactly.
everything
Exactly.
is taken care on its own.
So the next question is, are there similar unit tests using Sencha test? Any reason you didn't mention Sencha test in the presentation?
Yes.
So how would it be different with Sencha test versus regular versus what you showed?
Come again. I didn't get your question.
So you show similar unit tests using Sencha test. Is there a reason you didn't show Sencha test in your presentation?
Yeah, the main reason is a Sencha test is more into for unit testing purpose. Say so when we are taking when you're talking about automation end to end particularly, so there'll be other components also involved. Like say I'm automating an application end to end, and some parts I need to do an API automation, some parts like kind of I want to do some other kind of testing. So in that case, Sencha test won't be that much helpful tool. But
Okay,
as a unit testing tool, it's a perfect match for EXTJS.
got it. And then would you advocate the use of ext query or component query for identifying elements?
That's a good question. Uh, uh, So right now I don't have answer. I will check on that, Jim.
Okay.
I will get back to you on that.
And are there any books or guides you recommend for people that are like, oh my goodness, I need to learn more. How do I learn more? What do I do? What do you recommend people to go check out for that?
Now Selenium has a big community. Not only Selenium, so other tools also having a big community. So there are so many blogs and posts. So we can refer those.
Okay. What is there? Where should they just go to, like selenium.com, or what do they need to go to get started to find those?
Okay. So when it comes to like you wanna know Selenium, like we have Sencha test and we have our own docs for Sencha test, right? Likewise, Selenium has a seleniumhq.com where they have their own doc. We can go through it. But regarding these, how to customize the XPaths, so they don't have in-depth uh, content on that. So mostly like we need to go through other sites like Stack Overflow, etc. And it comes on practice particularly.
Okay, so no particular books or anything like that you'd recommend people to start with reading if they're wanting to learn more?
Um, right now, nothing is ringing in my mind. I can get back to you with the links where you can refer those, you know, examples how we can do better. Those
Okay,
kind of
so
content.
when upgrading XJS, do you see a need to update the selectors in your Selenium tests?
Come again? Sorry.
So when you're upgrading XJS, I'm guessing that when you're moving from one version of XJS to the next version, the new version when it comes out, do you
Mhm.
need to update your Selenium tests so that the selectors are correct?
Yeah, the selectors. Not exactly, not everything. Say like we have 100 selectors, so and it doesn't mean all the 100 will get affected.
Yeah.
So
So
might be
most of them
imperfect.
should be
Yeah,
the same, or
yeah. Most of them should be the same.
okay. All right, great. Well, I think that's it for questions. Let's see.
And
Actually, I see
yeah, if you have
another.
more questions, you can write it to us. Any other person is having more questions, queries, they can send it across to our team or to me. So we'll get back to them.
There's a form that people can use. There's a QR code that you can scan to go out to the forum to provide feedback on the sessions, or go to the virtual SenchaCon landing page where we'll have replays and links for more information there too. So thank you for that. There was another question here I see it just came in. Let me see if I can. When testing an XJS app, do you test it in multiple browsers, or do you rely on the fact that XJS has cross compatibility?
We test it in multiple browsers.
Yeah, you're testing the browser at that point.
Yeah, and sometimes
Makes
like
things.
the elements act weirdly in few browsers. Yep,
Yeah, I
but
mean, it is good to have something with like Sencha XJS that does work across browser, but you never
uh,
know. Browsers
yeah,
are always changing so fast.
99% it works the same. Only few components or like say like a few Ajax components takes time longer to load.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for that session. That was great. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of automation in any form. CI/CD, man, gets me excited.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.